Okay, let's start. Let's go. Let's fucking go. Hello, my name is Tamashii. And all I gotta say is Tama Days. Yes, that is my catchphrase. Do not fucking ask. I'm a grumpy Latina VTuber who lives in Japan. I try to stream 5 times a week. On one of those days, I do political commentary called TamaTalks on Tuesdays. And guess what? What day is it? Today's Tuesday. Which, guys, that means it's TamaTalks Tuesday. So we're going to be talking politically, and just, reflecting on what's been going on. But before I do that, I kind of want to pat myself in the fucking back. Not gonna lie. I do, I really do. And, oh, I didn't even prepare the visual for it. I didn't prepare for the visual. Here, let me see. What's it called? Plus something, but this is a huge milestone for me. And I know a lot of people won't see it as impressive or whatever. I'm literally a nobody VTuber, but I fucking did it. I have a sudden milestone where one of my TamaTalks has reached over 100 views on YouTube.com. Woo! Thank you. Sorry. That was so delayed. Gracias. No, gracias. No, thank you. Gracias. Oh. Can someone do that again? Thank you very much. Come on, give it to me. Do it. No. Okay. Thank you. Gracias. Thank you very much. Yes, it's true. Over 100 views on my latest TamaTalks. Thank you. Thank you. Gracias. Gracias. Oh, you make me blush. Thank you. Gracias. Gracias gozaimasu. Yes! This is like, how long did it take? I think I've been streaming TamaTalks for shit, I don't even know, chat. Has it been 2 years or a year? I can't do the maths, but it's been a while. And let me just tell ya, the VTuber community is ruthless against anyone who speaks politically. Unless you're a right-winger, then you're totally fine. You're gonna get success anyway. But if you're like an ounce of woke, you're dead. You're dead to the community. You are outcasted. No one cares. You're a loser. You're a loser unless you can make like drama out of it with other fucking VTubers. And I just want to talk about real issues, man. I really do. There's a reason why I don't talk about VTuber drama on here too much. Not even barely. I just like casually mention it, but it's because it's irrelevant. There's people dying in the fucking world. God fucking damn it. And I want to talk about that. And so, I won't beat around the bush. I honestly feel like the VTubing sphere community has really brought me down in the sense where I made my own community, and unfortunately that community ended up hurting me in the background. Obviously, I'm not gonna talk about it too much. If you want to know a bit more, you can watch one of my VODs on YouTube that talks about reuniting with a friend who contributed to that, but actually apologized like a mature person and realized that someone else was behind this like evil plot to ruin my mental. And a lot of people just watched and let me spiral down to immense depression. But the reason why I'm mentioning this is because that caused me to not edit anymore. Like, I was so heartbroken. I don't show it on stream, but off stream, I'm like, I was really heartbroken. I was depressed. I was sad. Bro, I couldn't even, you know, do much, let alone edit for myself, promote myself like I used to, like post shorts, TikToks, Yik Yaks, and everything, you know, just keep promoting myself, promoting my content. I just stopped cold turkey. And it's the reason why my growth started diminishing, both on Twitch and on YouTube. So I was fucking surprised when Zaya36, shout out to Zaya36, by the way, shout out to that guy. I know that guy. Do you guys know that guy? We ended up getting really close in this VTuber journey. Wow, that is, I don't know why it's hella weird right there. But how long is this gonna be? Get off! Hey! What? Oh, okay. But Zara36 is one of the OGs people who believed in my political content and hasn't stopped believing in me ever since. So I told him about me getting like 96 views. I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. I got 96 views on my recent TamaTalks. Someday I'll make it over 100. And then they go and they look from their side and they go, wait, what the fuck? It is over 100 views. It's at like 150. And I was like, what? Hence, caused me to celebrate and be happy. That's without promotion. That's without, you know, I mean, I do promote myself, but without, like, obviously focusing on making a shit ton of shorts, posting them on YouTube, making more effort to put my content in areas outside of YouTube and Twitch when it comes to reels, shorts, and all that stuff. So I was very surprised, and I'm like, damn, my hard work is actually pulling off in terms of like researching, you know, getting a new model, fucking making a nice room here. Like, you look at my room, isn't it nice? And yeah, making a very small community where at least I have a handful of people who are willing to watch me either live on stream and or on YouTube in my VODs. Yeah, I've been getting a lot of attention on Twitter as well, but what matters to me is like people actually watching my content. So I just really wanted to be like, for once in my life, I want to pat myself in the back and say that I'm finally proud of what I've done. Let's go. Thank you, Kazumi Ren, by the way, for subscribing for 2 months. That's awesome. I can't believe it's been already 2 months ago that you've joined this community. Gracias, gracias. Also, thank you to Relu for the lurk. But without further ado, let's just get to the nitty gritty. The US and Iran, well, mostly the US. The US wants to go to war with Iran. And we might get into World War III. But if you remember, like, when was this? Like 8 months ago, chat? Around 8 months ago, Israel attacked Iran, and Iran retaliated, and we honestly thought that we were gonna go into World War III then. Well, now it's not Israel, now it's like legit the 5 months? Are you kidding me? Sorry, I'm dyslexic with numbers, so 5s look like 2s to me. My bad. What was I doing? What was I saying? Oh yeah, this time the US is literally just like bullying Iran and threatening them with, you know, nuclear warfare if Iran doesn't give up entirely on making nuclear power. Israel started this propaganda campaign where they're like, hey, if Iran gets nuclear power, they're going to make nuclear weapons and destroy us all. And of course, America, being racist, supported that kind of rhetoric and propaganda. And finally, it seems like they're taking action, despite Iran being very willing to compromise and let the US monitor their use of nuclear power. All of a sudden, after Israel was able to get away and continues to get away with genocide, they're like, hey, daddy US, can you also help us destroy Iran for once and for all? And that way we won't have any enemies that can actually, retaliate against us by removing all of their nuclear power sources from their grasps. Stop negotiating with them, okay, thanks. And the US like, okay, baby girl. And yeah, that's basically where we are at now. But I want to reflect on that first attack that, of course, is always started by Israel, and reflect on that a bit. So this is a video from Al Jazeera called Israel's planned to attack Iran for years. So why now? And this was from 8 months ago, okay? So let me turn off my música. Boop. Música maestro. Boop. And let's officially hear this. Tell me if the audio is weird. I would greatly appreciate it. Now let's get to learning about the first, well, it's obviously, it's not the first attack, by the way, but the attack from 8 months ago that was started by Israel.
Let's talk about the timing of Israel striking Iran. Why now?
Maybe I should zoom in, huh?
There are lots of factors people are pointing to. We'll run through 3 of the main ones. But first, here's the backdrop. Since October 2023, when Hamas attacked Israel and Israel launched its war on Gaza, we've been in a period of heightened tension in the Middle East. Set against that, you've got a decades-long rivalry between Israel and Iran that goes back to the Islamic Revolution in 1979. And over the years, Israel has been adamant that it won't allow Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. It sees that as an existential threat. Iran says its nuclear program is peaceful and only for civilian use. For Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, taking out Iran's nuclear capability is something he's been talking about for his whole career.
Could you just explain for us how big a deal this is for Netanyahu personally?
Oh, this is huge. I mean, he's been calling for bombing Iran since the 1990s, but some of your viewers may remember him holding up a cartoon of a bomb at the UN General Assembly some years ago, where he said if Iran developed this much uranium, it would be too late, the point of no return. No, this is a legacy issue for him.
Damn.
That also squares with what analysts are saying about
He's a hater.
all the planning that's gone into this on the Israeli side.
They smuggled in drones. They were activating their operatives in Iran. They had intelligence on where Iran's military leaders live, and were able to kill them in their beds. Israelis have been wargaming this forever, but certainly after October 7th, 2023, those plans took on a different hue, shall we say, and became really operational.
This operation is really planned over many years, over 10 years. The preparations cost billions of dollars. It was always in the air. It was many times almost implemented, and always there was someone to stop it.
So how come this time it actually happened? Let's get into those 3 factors, starting with the nuclear aspect, which has been Israel's main justification.
And the thing is, I forgot to even put this in my sources, chat, but oh god, I should probably go look for that real quickly as we watch this video. But don't mind me. Oh, thank you, Ali. Thank you for joining on this in the stream on the stream in the stream. Thank you for joining stream. Gracias, gracias. What was I saying? Oh, yeah. Apparently, Israel has nuclear weapons as well, but they refuse to let anyone actually look at it, actually monitor it. And their weapons have the capacity of attacking like most of the global population. Like almost every major city, with Mexico barely like escaping range from a supposed Israeli attack. So I want you guys to like just think about that and realize it's not really fair for Netanyahu, who has already proven to be a destroyer of humanity, that he's calling for Iran to give up completely of their nuclear power, even though they've been willing to negotiate and also allow U.S. supervision of said nuclear power. He just wants them to give that all up, to have nothing, okay? How come he has the right to say that and to criticize Iran when he's literally destroyed Palestine? Literally. Okay, like it's very hypocritical. So I want you guys to really like just have that in the back of your minds, okay? Thank you, Zaya 36 for redeeming second. Oh, I wonder who third is going to be. Oh my god. Oh my god. But let's go back to the... Oh, wow, Kasumi, thank you for being third. Thank you, thank you. And now, everyone else, you will not have a ranking. But I also have a Animal Crossing redeem. If you guys want to let me know that you're here, feel free to use that to check in. And also when you do exclamation mark lurk, it will also pop out on screen here to let me know that you are lurking. Thank you very, very much. But anyway, let's go back to the video.
This is what Netanyahu said just after Israel launched its first strike on Iran.
If not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time.
Whoa!
Zaya 36 just donated $5 to Coalition for Humane Immigrant Rights.
Thank you, Zaya 36, for donating $5. $5 to charity. Thank you so much for donating to charity. Now we have raised how much? $60, chat. $60 for the Coalition for Humane Rights. Thank you, Zaya 36, and thank you also for checking in. Gracias, gracias gozaimasu. Here, let me shout you out. Although I have the old shout out overlay, my bad for that. But I'll shout out Zaya 36 once again for being one of my top supporters. Oh, and thank you for lurking. Thank you very much. And I'm gonna put that in the goddamn middle. Okay, that looks like I'm a wanted criminal. Why is it censoring my eyeballs? Yeah, go follow Zaya 36 if you haven't. They mostly stream on twitch.com. And, well, you can subscribe to their YouTube, but they suck at promoting or doing anything on that channel. So just go on Twitch and have a chill time and have fun with the guy. They love playing roguelikes and are woke, so you can feel safe knowing that the person you watch is not a fucking weirdo. Anyway, let's go back. Boop.
Time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival. That is why we have no choice but to act, and act now.
But here's the thing. The Trump administration was negotiating with Iran about its nuclear program, and the next round of talks was supposed to happen 2 days after Israel launched the first strikes. So plenty of people are questioning why Israel didn't let that diplomacy run its course. On top of that, back in March, the U.S. made this assessment of Iran's nuclear capabilities.
The IC continues to assess that Iran is not building a nuclear weapon, and Supreme Leader Khamenei has not authorized the nuclear weapons program that he suspended in 2003.
But there have been other developments
Okay.
since then. On June 12th, so the day before Israel launched its attack on Iran, the world's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency, said that Iran was not complying with its commitment to international nuclear safeguards. And in a report at the end of May, it said that Iran had significantly increased production and accumulation of highly enriched uranium, describing that as a serious concern. Although in a separate report, it also said that it had no credible indications of an ongoing, undeclared, structured nuclear program.
We did not find in Iran elements to indicate that there is an active, systematic plan to build a nuclear weapon. We have not seen elements to allow
But Netanyahu
us, as
says
inspectors,
otherwise.
to affirm that there was a nuclear weapon that was being manufactured.
Who
or
should we
produced
believe, chat?
somewhere
Who
in
should we
Iran.
There's
believe?
one more thing to keep in mind. Listen to Al Jazeera's James Bass, who we spoke to recently for our explainer on those U.S.-Iran nuclear talks.
I think one thing we have to say, though, every time we mention Israel, is Israel has a nuclear weapon.
That's what
Israel
I'm
is not
saying.
signed up to any of the international conventions.
That's what I'm saying.
Israel doesn't let IAEA look at its nuclear program and its nuclear weapons. It doesn't admit it has a nuclear weapon, but
That's
everyone knows that it does.
Okay, another factor when it comes to the timing of Israel's attacks is that a key part of Iran's defense strategy against Israel has been its network of regional allies known as the Axis of Resistance. But it's been seriously weakened in the last year or so, especially Hezbollah in Lebanon, which is next door to Israel. Hezbollah is a political and armed group that's always had support from Iran.
Israel's been going after Hezbollah really hard ever since October 2023, even killing its leader. So did the fact that Hezbollah is much weaker now factor into the timing of all this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Hezbollah was supposed to be Iran's forward defense, and Israel destroyed that forward defense, basically, and really made Hezbollah incapable of retaliating on Iran's behalf.
Hezbollah was one of the threats which stopped Israel of attacking Iran, because in Israel, the military power of Hezbollah was always perceived as a very strong one, a very threatening one in terms of making life impossible here, and they were neutralized.
Okay, now our third factor is President Trump. As we mentioned, Israel has essentially been planning this for years, but Israel relies heavily on the U.S. for military and political support. No previous U.S. president ever gave the green light for Israel to take military action in Iran, to crush its nuclear capability. One way or another, it happened under Trump. But we don't know exactly how that played out. He's been sending mixed messages. Just one day before Israel's attack, he suggested that he wanted to stick with the nuclear talks.
Look, I want to have an agreement with Iran. As long as I think there is an agreement, I don't want them going in, because I think that would blow it. Might help it, actually, but it also could blow it.
But since then, he seems to have become more and more aligned with Israel's messaging. He implied that Israel's operation was all part of an ultimatum that he gave to Iran when they started talks on a nuclear deal earlier this year.
I gave Iran 60 days, and they said no, and the 61st, you saw what happened.
5 days into the attacks, he posted this threat about Iran's supreme leader, saying he's an easy target and we're not going to take him out, i.e. kill him, at least for now. Trump
What
also
the
demanded
fuck?
an unconditional surrender by Iran, which Iran's supreme leader has rejected.
Yeah, and that wasn't even real. Oh, wait, I should read that. And stands firm against the imposed peace. The Iranian nation will not surrender to anyone in the face of
When you see
imposition.
that Trump was very much pushing for these U.S.-Iran nuclear talks to go ahead, and at the same time appearing to quietly endorse or allow this operation against Iran to happen. Can you help make sense of that for us?
The answer is no. I surrender. vis-a-vis Trump. I really can't analyze him, can't predict
He's
him, obviously, because he
he's
cannot predict
unpredictable.
himself. But he has the keys as usual. He has the keys. Where are we aiming now? He can make this war finish, and he can make this war even a bigger hell.
And is that what Israel is gunning for, is U.S. involvement at this point?
No doubt. They are doing anything possible to pull him in,
Yeah.
including increasing the hits in Iran so that Iran will hit back more seriously. So the threat, or the so-called threat over Israel, will seem to be more serious. And then
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's pretty obvious as well that Israel has been the aggressor this entire time, not only in Iran, but every other country it surrounded itself with. If you remember last year during the Global Summit Flotilla project that happened during when was it during the springtime or summertime? My bad, I don't remember, but it did happen last year. During that week alone, Israel even had the audacity to attack the boats of people from around the world who just wanted to go to Palestine and provide medical aid, food, and other supplies needed to help the population survive. Because Israel refused to open the Egyptian borders, and I mean the Israel borders itself, to allow enough humanitarian aid for people to survive. Okay, it's not enough. Whatever they're letting in now and back then was basically nothing. Was not enough for Palestinians to survive on, as they were being, bombed, killed, beheaded, raped, and all the starved, all the worst things you can ever imagine. People wanted to help, and even Greta Thunberg went over there to provide aid, and they bombed. They didn't bomb, but they tried to intimidate these people by attacking the boats with drones. It was intense. Yeah, I've noticed that Israel's usually the one starting stuff. Also, hello, man of Danny's. How are you? Thank you for joining. It's been a while, but thank you for being able to watch me tonight. The thing is like this guy in this video is saying, is that Israel is on purpose starting fights with literally anyone that opposes them, right? It's not only Iran. They attack other countries hoping that they retaliate intensely so they can play the victim and then ask the US, basically be like, hey, you see this? You see this? This nation attacked us like we said they would. We need help. Let's nuke them. Let's destroy them. And let's make us the #1 superpower. And that's what's going on here. It's not fair, but it's very clear that they're trying to provoke other fucking nations that are just trying to survive to attack them. Why? Because they refuse to be, either totally loyal to Israel or totally loyal to the US.
Then there will be more public so-called threat over Israel will hit back more seriously.
Let me go back to that part where he says
US
that.
involvement at this point?
No doubt. They are doing anything possible to pull him in, including increasing the hits in Iran so that Iran will hit back more seriously. So the threat, or the so-called threat over Israel, will seem to be more serious. And then there will be more public pressure in the United States to protect Israel.
No one likes Israel right now, buddy.
What Trump decides to do.
But even that
Most
doesn't
experts
matter
agree that
shit.
The only way to wipe out Iran's nuclear program militarily is with direct U.S. involvement, because it's the only country with a massive bunker buster bomb that can hit deep underground. That's where Iran has built some of its nuclear infrastructure. There's one enrichment site in particular in a place called Fordow in northwest Iran, which is basically buried under a mountain. But for now, Trump seems to want to keep people guessing as to whether or not the U.S. will strike Iran's nuclear facilities.
I mean, you don't know that I'm going to even do it. You don't know. I may do it. I may not do it. I mean, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I can tell you this, that
Jesus Christ.
Iran's got a lot of trouble, and they want to negotiate.
It also seems that Israel's goals might go beyond taking out Iran's nuclear sites, because Israel hit a whole range of targets, from assassinating top military officials to bombing the state TV channel.
It's on national television,
Some people are
bruh.
suggesting
Their crimes.
there's a bigger motivation here, to bring down Iran's government. Israel's defense minister has said that eliminating Iran's supreme leader is part of the campaign.
They are using Iran's nuclear program as a pretext to wage a war, and their aim is regime change and topple the ruling system, hoping that their actions will lead to some Iranians protesting in the streets, and that the ruling system is going to collapse from within. That is a big, huge miscalculation.
Is regime change part of the calculation in terms of timing?
Let's see. Man of Danny says, it's like the son who makes the other kids angry and then twists the story when the adults step in. Yeah, but it's like a more accurate way is like, it's as if Hitler's children. Actually, no, it's as if Hitler's dad, okay? It's as if little Hitler, you know, committed a bunch of crimes to other children. And then he goes to his dad, who funds all of those crimes and international crimes, genocide, you call it. And yeah, they both twist the story. They both twist the fucking story. It's insane.
No doubt. The only way really to neutralize the Iranian nuclear capabilities are through changing the regime. Changing regimes by force never succeed.
Never succeed.
Nowhere.
Never succeed.
From Afghanistan to Vietnam, from Lebanon to Gaza and the West Bank,
yeah,
Americans and Israel tried so many times to change regimes in so many countries.
Yep.
It was always a catastrophe.
Always failure.
A disaster for so many people caught up in this war. Hundreds of civilians have been killed, mainly in Iran, but also some in Israel.
Where's me?
Retaliatory strikes. People's lives are on hold.
Sorry,
There's
TOS.
a lot of fear about how much worse this could still get.
Oops, I pressed something else. Yeah, and it's sad because it's all for power. Oof, content warning. Yeah. I suck so bad too, because when I'm in shock, I just stare at it. I'm supposed to move, goddammit. But yeah, this was an Al Jazeera report on like around 8 months ago when Israel attacked Iran. After many years, they just threw a missile, multiple missiles, at Iran, and Iran retaliated. They really did once, and Israel backed off. And now, reflecting and remembering that, now going back to today, where it's now the U.S. threatening Iran with war, basically World War III, it kind of snowballed into the situation where we are right now, into just having a lame-ass excuse of possibly starting a war, simply for the reason of trying to control a nation from self-governance, in this case, having nuclear power. And now, with that in mind, I would also like to look at this TRT World how 11-minute, very good informational video about the history. That's what it's called, the history behind the U.S.-Iran conflict. This was from 6 years ago, by the way, but we kind of have to understand, you know, the specifically what's the U.S. issue with Iran. Earlier we saw the Israel issue. Well, I mean, now let's look at the U.S. So let's start the video. Boop.
For many years, Iran has defined itself in part by its opposition to my country. And there is, in fact, a tumultuous history between us.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world.
Relations between Iran and the United States have been mostly adversarial since the 1979 Islamic Revolution.
Here was not an embassy. It was a CIA center. This was a den of espionage, where they were plotting against the Iranian people.
But the seeds of animosity between the two countries were planted decades before.
Yes.
In 1952, Time magazine chose Iran's Prime Minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, as the 1951 Man of the Year for his efforts to nationalize his country's oil wealth, despite mounting economic pressure from Britain. Mossadegh was Iran's 35th Prime Minister, but his government succeeded in doing what no other Iranian leader was able to do before. He went against British interests in his country and deprived the Navy from securing oil supplies.
Wait a second. Wait a second, guys. Wait a second. Does that sound familiar? Huh. Doesn't that sound a bit familiar? Like a nation decides to self-govern and control their own oil and use the profits and better the economy through that self-governance and self-oil without, you know, only benefiting the Western imperialists that control said country. Doesn't that sound familiar? I don't feel like that's happened somewhere else before. Not somewhere else, but like at multiple places, actually. Actually, multiple places throughout history. That sounds very familiar. And then First World says no. And then they have these like psychotic plans to destroy the nation over it. Oil. Because, you know, as it says right there. Look, it says right there. Wait, not me. Don't look at me. Over here. They deprive the Navy from securing oil supplies. Okay.
To understand how important this chapter is in Iran's history and how it shaped its future and its relations with the US, we have to go back to the start of the century, when Iran was still known as Persia. Like many states in the region, Iranian oil wealth was monitored by foreign countries since its discovery.
Of
In
course.
1901, the British government encouraged entrepreneur William Knox Darcy to invest in Persia's oil sector. The British brokered a deal between Darcy and the then Shah of Iran, Muzaffar al-Din. Darcy was granted a 60-year concession to prospect, transport, and sell petroleum, natural gas, asphalt, and minerals in 3/4 of the country. Under the deal, the Shah was given a lump sum of £20,000 in cash and a further £20,000 in shares, with Iran set to receive only 16% of the profits.
16
is known historically as the deal that compromised Iran's ability to benefit from its own oil wealth for decades.
Yeah.
In 1908, a significant oil reserve was found at Masjid Suleiman in southwestern Iran. It was the world's largest oil discovery at the time, and it set off a wave of exploration that would change the region's future. After the discovery, the British government bought out the Darcy concession and the Anglo-Persian Oil Company that later became the British Petroleum Company, or BP, in 1954. In the coming era, navies and national economies would be powered by oil, replacing coal. Iranian oil helped the British Navy substantially during World War I. Winston Churchill, who secured the purchase of the
I hate
shares
that
from
guy.
the Darcy concession, affirmed the importance of Iranian oil.
Fortune brought us a prize from fairyland beyond our wildest dreams.
For the next 50 years, Iran's vast oil reserves came under British control. That is, until Mossadegh came into power.
Yeah, until
After World War II, Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi
until one guy was like, hey, it's not fair that these Western powers take advantage of our natural resources with us still suffering and them still benefiting. That's not fair. God damn it.
Pahlavi's rule was weakened by the rise of nationalist voices in the Iranian parliament. In March 1951, Iranian Prime Minister Haj Ali Razmara was assassinated by an ardent supporter of oil nationalization. Shortly after the assassination, nationalists in the Iranian Majlis, or parliament, nominated Mossadegh as their new prime minister. Fearing the strength of the nationalist movement, the Shah was forced to approve Mossadegh's nomination. And in May 1951, the Iranian parliament voted to nationalize the oil industry.
Okay,
Addressing his
nationalize
victory,
it.
Mossadegh said in a famous speech,
"Our long years of negotiations with foreign countries have yielded no results thus far. With the oil revenues, we could meet our entire budget and combat poverty, disease, and backwardness among our people."
The
Oh, isn't that
nationalization
nice?
of Iranian
That's
oil
great.
was a blow to Britain's economic interests and to the survival of the British Empire.
Well, fuck
Views
them.
of the great refinery at Abadan are sufficient evidence in themselves of its size and importance. This great undertaking, built up over many years by British skill and with British money, has now been evacuated in humiliating circumstances.
Britain took the matter to the International Court of Justice and placed an embargo on Iran's oil industry, making it impossible for
Wait,
Iran
embargo? Wait a second. Wait. So Iran was like, yeah, let's fix poverty and the suffrage of our people. And then this Western power is like, oh yeah? Fuck you. We're gonna slap some embargoes on you to make it impossible for you to sell your oil and make business outside of Iran. Doesn't that sound familiar? Interesting. Very interesting. I lost 1 follower because I made that distinction, chat. I really did. Maybe some people don't like it when I question Western imperialism, huh? Makes you think of how different these parts of the world could have been if the big West countries worked with the countries that have the oil and helped them build up, instead of just trying to take as much oil as possible for basically free. Yeah, I'm pretty sure the world would be a better place and there would be much less violence, but Western imperialism doesn't allow that, and I doubt it ever will. I mean, of course I can hope, but considering the situation that we still suffer from today, I highly doubt that's gonna happen anytime soon. Ay. Whoop. Actually, let me go like this.
Iran to sell its newly nationalized oil on the world market. The British hoped that economic pressure would threaten the popularity of Mossadegh and force him out of power. But Mossadegh was adamant.
Abroad, that strange politician Dr. Mossadegh continued on his strange way, refusing every offer for settlement of the oil dispute.
That's so, they're such haters too. They start like shitting on the guy. It's like, this fucking strange fucking man fucking does not allow us to steal the fucking oil. Fucking strange, yeah.
Desperate to regain control of Iran's oil industry, the British
Strange
government approached the United States
politician.
to assist in orchestrating a coup against Mossadegh. Harry
Oh,
Truman's
a coup? Orchestrate a coup? Oh my god. Chat, I feel like this is a blast from the past. Like, they keep fucking referencing a lot of stuff Shit, it just sounds very familiar. Jesus Christ. Harry Truman's administration rejected the idea of a coup in 1952. Wait, didn't like someone called JF something also reject the coup, and then in a specific country? And then some, you know, once they had their brains blown out, you know, other people decided to finally try to destroy a certain country. Okay. I'm trying to escape their power.
Administration rejected the idea of a coup in 1952, but when Dwight Eisenhower came to power in 1953,
Oh, see, a
the
new
British
guy
were able
came to
persuade
power.
him by warning him of Mossadegh's communist alliances.
Demonstrations and riots in the streets of Tehran have followed the usual pattern in that troubled country. With shouts of "down with the Shah," fanatical leaders have been rallying the people in favor of Dr. Mossadegh.
The initial plan of toppling Mossadegh had failed, but the British and Americans eventually succeeded when they relied on royalists, the supporters of the exiled Shah. The country was divided between the Shah supporters and Mossadegh supporters. This is how pro-Shah demonstrators
The rich
took over
and the
streets of
poor,
Tehran.
basically.
Mobs set pro-Mossadegh newspapers on fire, General Fazollah Zahedi surrounded Mossadegh's residence with tanks, and protesters clashed with his guards. Mossadegh and his cabinet eventually surrendered, and General Fazollah Zahedi became Iran's new prime minister. The US then restored the pro-Western regime of Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi to power. This was the first foreign intervention orchestrated by the newly formed CIA. The agency, with the help of British MI6, overthrew the first democratically elected government in the country. It was the beginning of the sequence of events that shaped Iran's relations with the US today.
In the military court at Tehran, where he's been on trial for treason, the Persian ex-premier, Dr. Mossadegh, demonstrates that he knows how to make an entrance.
Mossadegh was imprisoned for 3 years, then put under house arrest until his death. His family were forced to bury him at his residence. The overthrow of Mossadegh transformed Iran from a constitutional monarchy into a royal dictatorship, marking the beginning of public hostility towards the US. In 2000, Secretary of State Madeleine Albright acknowledged for the first
I'll
time
be
the
back.
US's
Give me
role
a sec.
in the 1953 coup.
I'll zoom in for you
The
guys
coup
though.
is clearly a setback for Iran's political development, and it is easy to see now why many Iranians continue to resent this intervention by America in their internal affairs.
After the coup of 1953, the oil was back under the control of the British, and the US gave increasing support to the Shah of Iran. In 2013, Iran's parliament approved a bill for the government to sue the US for its involvement in the coup. The bill followed the release of declassified documents offering details about how the CIA carried out the coup as an act of US foreign policy.
Campaign to install a pro-Western government in Iran. Target: Prime Minister Mossadegh and his government. Objectives: through legal or quasi-legal methods, to effect the fall of the Mossadegh government and to replace it with a pro-Western government under the Shah's leadership, with Zahedi as its prime minister.
That's fucked up, man.
In 1957, the US government helped the Shah establish its infamous secret police force known as Savak. Savak was tasked with monitoring the Shah's political opponents and even Iranians abroad. The agency tortured many Iranians, and its agents received training for interrogation tactics from the CIA. But the alliance between the Shah and the US turned a deaf ear to the growing anger in Iranian streets against the oppression of the Shah and US interference. In late December 1977, during a lavish New Year's Eve celebration, US President Jimmy Carter praised the Shah for making his country an island of stability.
Iran, because of the great leadership of the Shah, is an island of stability in one of the more troubled areas of the world.
Little more than a year later, animosity towards the Shah and US policies culminated in the Shah's ousting. Religious leader Ayatollah Khomeini, who played an integral part in the Shah overthrow, returned to the country after 15 years in exile. His return marked the beginning of more than 4 decades of animosity between Iran and the US.
Okay. Wait, mate. So, let's read this. Let's read this. Boop. So, 1979, Iranian students storm American embassy and hold more than 60 Americans hostage. Okay. 1980, U.S. bans exports to Iran and expels Iran diplomats. 1983, suicide bombing in Beirut kills 241 American servicemen. U.S. shoots Iranian passenger plane, killing 290 people. Iran-Iraq war, 1 million killed. And in 1992, U.S. Congress imposes sanctions on Iran. 2009, discovery of secret uranium enrichment. You're so fast. Enrichment. Oh, there's an enrichment site in Iran. Okay.
Since 1984, the US has designated Iran as a sponsor of terrorism. And although there were periods of negotiations and decreased tensions, changes in administration and Iran's proxy wars throughout the region have put the two countries at odds once again.
Tensions between Tehran and Washington have been rising since the Trump administration withdrew from the Iran nuclear deal in 2018.
For far too long, all the way back to 1979 to be exact, nations have tolerated Iran's destructive and destabilizing behavior.
Yeah, like the behavior that the US and the British fucking coordinated, by the way. And that's the thing. That agreement that Trump pulled out of Iran, God, I don't even know how to pronounce it. Iran was following the rules. They had the US monitor them to make sure they're not making nuclear bombs. They were following the rules. And then Trump said, Lamau, let's not do that anymore. Like, this is all the US's fault.
In the Middle East and beyond. Those days are over.
The US has taken several steps to put maximum pressure on the Iranian regime.
November 2018, the U.S. reimposes economic sanctions. April 2019, the U.S. designates the Islamic Revolutionary Corps, IRGC, a foreign terrorist organization. May 2019, the U.S. tightens energy sanctions against
The campaign
Iran.
aimed to curb Iran's nuclear program and regional reach by draining its economy. Iran responded to the maximum pressure campaign with a maximum resistance campaign. In retaliation, Iran showed off its ability to harm U.S. interests in the region.
May 2019, Iran increases its production of enriched uranium. May to June 2019, Iran attacks multiple oil tankers. June 2019, Iran shoots down U.S. surveillance drone. July 2019, Iran seizes British oil
In
tanker.
January 2020, the U.S. assassinated Qasem Soleimani, Iran's most revered military commander. Soleimani was the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guards Quds Force. His controversial role in the war in Syria enhanced Iran's military presence in the region. President Hassan Rouhani drew parallels between Soleimani's assassination and the US-engineered coup of 1953.
Wow.
This crime that the US committed is similar to the coup attempt and similar to the downing of Airbus passenger flight in the Persian Gulf. This crime will never be forgotten.
Trump said that by killing Soleimani, the US had saved many lives. But to many of these mourners, Soleimani, just like Mossadegh, was another national hero that the US removed from power against the will of the Iranian people.
Yeah. US. Nah, I'd be fucking pissed off too. Very good video. Very good video. Definitely recommend for anyone to watch it on their own time to refresh on things. Island of Stability is kind of crazy. Yeah, it is. Uranium is nuclear bomb stuff, I believe. But the entire time that was discovered, the US was monitoring, and they said earlier that they had no proof that they were actually making nuclear weapons. Of course, now that the US backed off from that, from literally being like, hey, let's monitor you. The US backed off from that and just wants complete control of all nuclear power in Iran. Well, I don't know what would happen after that, but I think it's fair. I think it's fair for countries that have been fucked over by the US or Britain multiple times to have the right to defend itself. I'm sorry, but if Israel can fucking bomb anyone that they want, at least the countries that they're bombing should be able to retaliate. Look what happened to Palestine. They had nothing to defend themselves with. No weapons or anything. So I would, you know, whatever Iran needs to do. I don't believe in killing. I don't believe in crime and corruption. But when you compare the two, the one that's doing that the most is the US. So if they need to defend themselves, then, you know, they need to do that. To be honest, if I was Iran and I saw that all the Western kids had world-ending bombs, I would make some too. Yeah, literally. And Iran has been like retaliating in the most peaceful way, by the way. They only aim at military personnel. Okay? And corrupt officials that live within their land. But if you look at the US and Israel, they kill civilians for funsies. You tell me who's worse. Obviously Israel and the US. Yeah. I want to see fireworks in Tel Aviv again. Please, Iran. No, yeah, they actually did say, like, hey, if you attack us, we won't hold back. And honestly, Iran has been holding back so much. They've been the bigger person in this case this entire fucking time. They've been holding back. While America continues to you know, take advantage of them and kill not only like civilians, but also any possibility of them becoming successful as a nation on their own without someone trying to fuck it up all the time. Hello, by the way, Emil. Thank you for joining. So, I want to look at something here. Because I'm learning alongside you guys, by the way. So don't think I know everything. I'm just connecting the dots and learning and reflecting on what I've learned with you guys. We're learning at the same time here. One thing that I wanted to learn about throughout this time from 1979 to today was this specific event.
Since 1984, the US
that ended up costing so many lives. Let me see. What was it? Over 1 million people? Right here, 1990 to 1988, Iran-Iraq war, 1 million people killed. That's crazy. But then, if you fast forward towards the future, it kind of ended up like right here you can see that Iran and Iraq were fighting, but then here how the Iraq war changed the world. All of a sudden the US as well went against Iraq. And so we just saw how they fucked over Iran, and I think it would make sense as well to learn a bit more about the Iraq war during Bush's reign in the US. So I want to learn about that more. And this is from Al Jazeera from 2 years ago, and it's called How Iraq War Changed the World. I just said that, Lamau. So let's look at that. Hello, I'm late. You're not late. It's okay. Before that, let me drink my protein shake. Or not protein shake, it's like juice. It's like water. It tastes gross. But let me press play here. Habba!
Saddam Hussein and his sons must leave Iraq within 48 hours.
These are Arabs who are going to welcome us as liberators.
Oh my God.
Who will govern Iraq when Saddam Hussein is removed?
The U.S. invasion of Iraq was supposed to be easy.
God bless that guy, by the way. I never understood that as a child. When I saw that on national television, I'm like, man, that guy has issues. Why did he throw a shoe at the president? But now that you grow up Now that you grow up and you've seen the horrors of Western imperialism, and you see how much innocent civilians they've killed all over the world. Fuck it, I'd throw a shoe. I'd throw more than a shoe at that guy. I understand. I understand. Let's replay that. That's like that's the most justice these people have received, by the way, is that guy throwing that shoe at these fucking assholes. At that asshole right there. And I wish they would receive more justice.
Easy.
This is the goodbye kiss you dog. This is from the widows, the orphans, and those who've killed through the Iraq war. That's what he said.
Bad guys and transform Iraq into a democratic, pro-American oasis. But the Iraq war blew up in America's face.
Stuff happens.
And it changed both countries.
Stuff happens.
It changed
Oh my God.
the entire Middle East. In fact, it changed
Fuck
much
you,
of
bruh.
our world forever.
A million Iraqis are dead because you lied. You lied. You lied. You lied. You lied. You lied. You lied.
He lied, chat.
Should we start? Within weeks of the September 11th attacks, the United States had occupied Afghanistan, where Al-Qaeda was based at the time, and removed the ruling Taliban from power. But very quickly after, the George W. Bush administration began selling another war. It wanted to invade Iraq. There was no link between 9/11 and Iraq, so the Bush administration began manufacturing justifications. Iraq was in league with Al-Qaeda.
There are Al-Qaeda in a number of locations in Iraq.
Iraqis needed saving from their dictator.
Saddam Hussein's violations of human rights.
Iraq had
weapons of mass destruction.
We don't want the smoking gun to be a mushroom cloud.
But those
Wait a
weapons of
second.
mass destruction were never found.
Wait, they were never found. Chat, wait a second. Wait a second. Wait, chat, wait. Doesn't that sound familiar? The US was claiming that a specific country had nuclear weapons or were going to make nuclear weapons. Obviously show no evidence of that. Therefore, they have to make something up to justify war on said country. That sounds very familiar, doesn't it? I feel like we just witnessed that. Literally, how long has it been since we watched this? Like 2 minutes ago? I think we just finished getting a refresher on that chat. Isn't that weird? How many times has I feel like stuff happens is crazy. That's true, it is crazy. Have we been here before? I feel like 2 minutes ago we just heard this fucking story. You tell me, chat. You tell me.
Millions of people knew invading Iraq was wrong. 20 years on, they've been proven right time and time again. The invasion of Iraq resulted in death, destruction, and massive blowback. And it gave us these guys. There's something President George W. Bush said in 2007, 4 years into the invasion of Iraq, that ironically sums up how badly the US messed up. And there's another part of this clip that we'll be coming back to a little later, so pay attention here.
Imagine Iraq where Al-Qaeda has established sanctuaries to safely plot future attacks on targets all over the world.
It's ironic because by the time Bush said this, Al-Qaeda had established itself in Iraq, even though the group wasn't there before the US invaded. As one of the justifications for war, Bush and his officials insisted to an American public still reeling from 9/11 that Al-Qaeda and Iraq were linked.
The reason I keep insisting that there was a relationship between Iraq and Saddam and Al-Qaeda, because there was a relationship between Iraq and Al-Qaeda.
Like pretty much all of the Bush administration's justifications for this war, this was a lie. Iraqi leader Saddam Hussein and Al-Qaeda's Osama bin Laden were both Arab men who were once allies of the United States. But they didn't have much else in common. In fact, Al-Qaeda showed up in Iraq only after the US invaded the country, dismantled the Iraqi army and security forces, and created a security vacuum that allowed all sorts of foreign fighters and violent groups to enter. Tapping into anger at the US for invading a Muslim country, as they discussed at scandals like the torture at Abu Ghraib, Al-Qaeda
that was a close one.
to recruit and grow into something even more menacing. The invasion of Iraq propelled the group from a small, isolated organization into a genuinely global network that eventually became the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or Iraq and the Levant, as President Obama would say.
ISIL is a direct outgrowth of al-Qaeda in Iraq that grew out of our invasion, which is an example of unintended consequences.
Those unintended consequences included al-Qaeda sparking a sectarian civil war in Iraq by bombing some of the holiest sites in Shia Islam. They included hundreds of suicide and car bombings that killed thousands of Iraqis, and they included ISIS at one point controlling not just 40% of Iraq, but about a third of neighboring Syria as well.
Wow.
During the mid-2010s, the group was constantly in the headlines as it killed thousands and thousands of people, not just in Iraq and Syria, but also in Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bangladesh, Egypt, Libya, Tunisia, France, Turkey, Belgium, Indonesia, Russia, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Jordan, Germany, Somalia, the UK, Iran, the Philippines, Spain, Algeria, the United States, Nigeria, Sri Lanka. ISIS is no longer as powerful as it was, but it took years of a major US-led military operation that cost thousands more civilian lives, all to solve a problem created by the US occupying Iraq in the first place.
Yep.
Okay, remember that George W. Bush quote from a few minutes ago? This time, I'm going to play the first part of that soundbite as well.
For all those who ask whether the fight in Iraq is worth it,
It's not.
imagine an Iraq where militia groups backed by Iran control large parts of the country.
This is going to be a bit of a running theme here because, again, the US ended up causing the exact things it said it was invading Iraq to prevent. One of its goals in invading Iraq was to make the entire region friendlier to American interests. Instead, the war helped strengthen its biggest adversary there. Iran and the United States don't seem to ever agree on much, but in 2003, Saddam Hussein was a common enemy. Iranians hated him because in 1980, he had launched a war against them that lasted 8 years and left 500,000 people dead. It was a brutal war. Iraq used poison gas against Iranian soldiers, and the US helped prolong the fighting by sending weapons to both countries, although most of its support went to one side.
I just hate the US. Jesus Christ, man. Damn. Hi, Nola. How are ya? Fuck. Fucking hell.
So even as Iran was probably glad to see the end of Saddam, the US was strongly hinting that Iran could be next. Here's George W. Bush talking about Iran, Iraq, and North Korea a few months before invading Iraq.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil, arming to threaten the peace of the world. And all nations should know America will do what is necessary to ensure our nation's security.
But something else happened. Iran, not the US, ended up benefiting the most from the invasion of Iraq. In less than 2 years, the US had ended the rule of Iran's enemies on both its eastern and western borders. Iran and the Taliban had bad blood between them too. Before the US invasion, Iraq was a buffer against Iran's presence in the Arab world. But after the invasion, Iraq became a foothold for Iranian influence to spread in neighboring countries. For example, Iran was able to build supply lines across Iraq to Syria, where Iranian-backed groups fought alongside Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad in that country's war. During the 1980s and 90s, Iran had cultivated and protected Iraqis who opposed Saddam's rule. And it was these Iranian-backed parties that dominated Iraqi politics after Saddam was gone. Today, posters of Iranian leaders hang all over Iraqi cities. Iranian commerce dominates the Iraqi market. And Iraq's security forces include powerful militias that are trained, supported, and sometimes even led by Iranians. It was these militias that helped defeat ISIS in Iraq. They fought on the ground with support from the US Air Force in the sky. Still, the US and Iran are adversaries. But the possibility of the US invading Iran the way it did Iraq, that's basically gone from next on the list to effectively zero. Because the invasion of Iraq very quickly changed America itself and its commitment to these kinds of wars. Here's how. It might seem odd now, but the war was actually very popular with Americans at first.
USA! USA!
that didn't last long. Almost everything that had been used to justify the war turned out to be a lie, including how quick it was supposed to be. Over 4,000 American soldiers were killed, and it took the US more than 8 years to withdraw from Iraq without much to show for it, other than, as we've seen, the strengthening of Iran and the spread of ISIS. Turns out the US wasn't able to impose its will on another country by force. Bush, who at one point had a 90% approval rating, ended his presidency with just 22% of Americans approving.
Damn.
After Bush, the next two presidents both insisted they'd always opposed the war, unlike the political establishments in both parties.
Did that happen, Chet? Did that happen?
Looking at the evidence ahead of time, understood that there was not an imminent threat.
Bottom line, there were no weapons of mass destruction. They said there are weapons of mass destruction. I was against the war when it started.
But the US war machine didn't stop.
And now Trump is saying the exact opposite, and we're about to possibly get into World War III within this week. Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ. The American interest thing always gets me, because, like, this is not how you become someone's friend. Well, that's why it's called American interest. Specifically, only America. And what's better than to kill someone for something you want than actually sharing, because sharing is caring, you know?
After Iraq, it adapted. Today, you won't hear many American politicians talk about Bush-style goals like nation building or regime change. Instead, US military power is deployed in small doses all over the world for assassinations or other special forces missions. Drones, missiles, airstrikes, all these let the US hit targets from thousands of miles away without American troops being in harm's way. That's made the drone program much more popular than the Iraq War. But drone warfare isn't clean. These strikes have killed thousands of civilians, with drone pilots often unable to tell exactly who they're targeting. And since the drone program is directly under the president's control, it's given American presidents the power to execute people all over the world, including, in several cases, American citizens. The Iraq War was always going to be a disaster on so many levels. It was also an illegal war.
It's not in conformity with the UN Charter from our point of view, and from the Charter point of view, it was illegal.
But the US insisted it was above such rules and that it had a right to preemptively attack whoever it wanted. Most of the world refused to go along.
When we went in, there were 3 countries, Great Britain, Australia, and the United States. That's not a grand coalition. We can do better.
30 seconds. Well, actually, you forgot Poland.
The problem with acting like you're above the law is that it gives others an excuse to break the rules as well. Listen to Bernie Sanders, at the time one of the only people in Congress opposing the war, warning of those consequences.
If President Bush believes that the U.S. can go to war at any time against any nation, what moral or legal obligation could our government raise if another country chose to do the same thing?
In the years since, we've seen that playing out all over the world. Governments breaking international law and committing war crimes with impunity, whether they're cracking down on dissent, stealing territory, or invading other countries. But maybe the guy at the heart of it all saw a link between what he set in motion in Iraq in 2003 and Russia invading Ukraine in 2022.
The decision of one man to launch a wholly unjustified and brutal invasion of of Ukraine. Anyway.
Conservative estimates.
He was on autopilot. Oh, Jesus Christ. He was legit on autopilot. He was like, yeah, Iraq. Wait, no, Ukraine, Lamel.
Estimates say that around 300,000 people were killed because of America's decision to illegally invade Iraq, although the real number is probably much higher. In Iraq today, sectarianism is rife, the economy is weak, poverty is widespread, basic services are sporadic, and the security situation is, in many places, still dangerous.
The invasion was catastrophic. They destroyed and killed, and let criminals and terrorists and Al-Qaeda enter. Everything has deteriorated. Our life before the war was better.
20 years on, Iraqis are still dealing with the consequences of that invasion every day. But what about the consequences for the government officials who lied to justify the war? Or for the media that repeated so many of those lies instead of investigating them? To find out, you'll want to watch this video.
Okay, give me a sec here. Let me look at my notes. So, as you can see, it makes sense why the US wants to officially just get into war with Iran. It's something that they do constantly. It's something that they literally do constantly. They want something, they don't get it. They want complete control of a nation, they don't get it. Therefore, they threaten with war. And in this case, though, Trump is doing something very unpopular and very out of character in terms of the US, the new way of US doing things. You know, it stopped doing Bush style tactics where they say a lie to justify war. Now Trump is doing that, but literally just willy-nilly going, okay, let's go. Send everyone over there. Send all of the troops. Send all of the arsenal. Send every nuclear airplane we have. And if you don't give us complete power, we're gonna bomb you. And obviously Iran is not gonna fall for that. And they also have the right to defend themselves, so it just makes sense. What the heck? Where is my notes? So we learned about Iran, we learned about well, first we reflected on Israel attacking Iran 8 months ago. Then we reflected on the US-Iran conflict specifically, and the Iraq war as well. I just feel like throughout all of that, however, I kept saying, doesn't that sound familiar, guys? I feel like that just sounds very familiar. And this is where we transition to talking about Latin America, okay? Because if any of that sounded familiar, well, it's because of Latin America. Oh, pause, god damn you, pause! Okay, so there is TOS in this, so I'm gonna zoom on my face for a bit. And this is like a 40-minute, documentary on how the US supported military coups in Latin America in the 60s. So we're only gonna watch the Brazil part of it, because I didn't even know about Brazil until I watched this small section on it. But we're probably gonna watch 10 minutes of it and then move on to you know, talking about the most recent issue in Latin America, which is Mexico, and what happened yesterday. But if anyone wants to watch the entire thing, here's the link to that. I'll also post it on in my YouTube chat for anyone who wants to learn about Latin America. I'm just gonna play it for the first 5 minutes, 3 minutes maybe. Oh, Bush is okay, oh, Bush is still alive. IDKY, I thought he was assassinated. Nah, he's still kicking. Not even trying to trick the public anymore, just doing it because I can. It's true. Noseless Tama? Where? I have a nose. Okay, boop. You're just gonna hear the audio for now. This is Brazil, January 8th, 2020. Lula, you're thief, your place is in jail, is what they're saying. So no one could have imagined such attack. Okay, you know what? I'm just gonna... Oh, it's like 2 minutes where there's TOS. But do you think I can switch quickly enough, chat? You think I can? Oh, no! Okay. I'll press this button as quick as I can, okay? So no one could have imagined such attack.
Acontecer uma coisa daquele porte, daquela extensão.
Oh. It was a coup attempt. They were trying to instigate a coup. Oh, I'm not pressing it. Wait, the things he said things that had a really big effect on me, and that shocked the Brazilian elite. So this is one of the National Union of Students. Oh, he's the president of that from 1969 to 1971 in Brazil, John Mark. Actually, Man of Denny's has a very good prediction here. Let's read it. Bro, this is gonna be Iran again. Guy rallies the country to move beyond poverty. West says no. Prediction go.
This was at the height of the Cold War, and Goulart's actions began to trouble the U.S. administration.
Oh, yo! I paused and Manny literally read the past and the future. The West did not like what that guy was saying, chat. Oh, fuck. Interesting. Watch this chat. It's just, we saw this story like 4 times now. 4 times or 5 throughout this fucking stream. And other streams before that, even more times with different countries. It's just fucking, it's crazy. Hi, ladies, gentlemen, and those who are both or neither. I hope everyone's doing well despite the horrors. Well, we're reflecting on Western imperialism, specifically the U.S. as always. We just finished talking about Iran and why we possibly may go into World War III with them. Mostly because of Western greediness and imperialism. And throughout all of that, I just kept saying, doesn't this sound familiar, guys? Doesn't this sound familiar? Lamau. Wait, let's look at Latin America. And one thing that I haven't learned about and haven't talked about yet on stream is Brazil. So we're going to watch like a small clip from this 40-minute documentary about how the U.S. supported military coups in Latin America in the 1960s. And literally, Danny literally predicted what happened. A leader in Brazil was calling to end poverty. The West says no. We already know what's going to happen, right? We already know what... sounds familiar. You know? But let's rewind that. Let's make sure that everyone heard that the U.S. didn't like that.
Call in Brazil, and he needed to be stopped.
Oh, wait.
Imagine for many people what the Cold War was really like. There was real fear about Russia. I spent a lot of time combating communism. I joined the agency in the 60s.
Combating communism, chat. And that's where I'm going to stop there. But as you can see, like, just within, how long was this? 6 minutes of this documentary, we, as normal ass people, okay, we're not experts on anything. I'm not an expert on anything. As I said before, I'm learning alongside of you guys, okay? I think it's healthy to admit that. And I think it's healthy to fucking reflect on what's going on in the world right now. Whether you're an expert or not, whether you don't know anything about politics or you do. But you and me were able to expertly, well, not expertly, but come to the same conclusion that many historians and many, people who actually know what they're talking about can come to the same conclusion and know that the U.S. doesn't like it. when a nation tries to self-govern for the benefit of its people and not the benefit of Western powers, most importantly, the U.S. Okay? I don't know if Danny's an expert, but he clocked it in right in there within 2 minutes of the video. Okay? And that is just by us analyzing simple moments in history. So it applies to Iran, and it also applies to Latin America. Let me read my chat. Let's see. Wizard's Red Book says, history has been rhyming way too much lately. It really has. It really has. Capitalists will say socialism never works, and then destabilize any country that doesn't think it's moral to hunt unhoused people for sport and act like capitalism isn't maintained through violence. Expertise is both relative and subjective. It's true. So again, we saw how this applies to the Middle East, now to Latin America. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and fucking okay, there we go. I'm looking at my notes, my bad. So there's a new leader in Latin America, fairly new in my opinion, that has been, well, I don't even think new. They're kind of following their president's, wait, is that how you say that? The former leader's will, I suppose. But the new leader of this specific country has been calling to end poverty and redistribute wealth evenly and help the society through social programs and such. And they've been getting a lot of shit in the media, especially from a Western perspective, mostly Americans and those who do not want to see that sort of change happen in, I wonder what country people might guess that I'm talking about here. Can anyone guess what Latin American country I'm talking about? If you don't want to say my long-ass username, feel free to shorten it Wiz, Wizards, or Book, or whatever else is fine. I like reading sometimes. Sorry. Wait. Give me a sec. I'm hearing a lot of noises. Ah, okay. Okay, going back to my notes here. No one knows what I'm talking about? No one knows the theme for today? Goings. Fine, I'll tell you. I'm talking about Mexico. Mexico. Iran? I said Latin America, Emil. God damn it. We just finished talking about Iran. What happened to the Venezuelan president, by the way? Is he still detained? He is detained still. But if we want to talk about what happened, all of the accusations that America was saying that he was the leader of a cartel called Cartel de los Soles was a complete lie. Actually, I have the source here from the New York Times themselves. I paid a subscription to be able to read more stuff. But this is legit from the Justice Department. Justice Department drops claim that Venezuela's Cartel de los Soles is an actual group. Last year, before capturing President Nicolás Maduro, the Trump administration designated a Venezuelan slang term for drug corruption in the military as a terrorist organization and said he led it. This is why they supposedly attacked Venezuela, killed civilians, and kidnapped Venezuelan's president and his wife. Turns out that the claim that led to that attack and capturing of the president was a lie. They just look, the Justice Department has backed off a dubious claim about President Nicolás Maduro that the Trump administration promoted last year and laying the groundwork to remove him from power in Venezuela, accusing him of leading a drug cartel called Cartel de los Soles. So they lied. No one's paying attention. And now, most likely, Venezuela will be in charge of a leader that will listen to whatever the U.S. wants. I mean, all the oil that was supposed to go to Cuba, by the way, that was supposed to go to Cuba. Right now, Cuba has no oil, although I think the sanctions were dropped. I don't know if that's true or not, but I saw something before I started stream. But let's just say for now, since I haven't like made sure that was real or not, Cuba can't get any oil from anyone because the US is forcing other nations to not make business with Cuba. And the number one person that made business with Cuba in terms of oil was Venezuela. And, you know, they fucking kidnapped this guy. And now they put a new leader that most likely will listen to America's every whim. And now all that oil is going to Israel. That's right. They immediately started sending all that oil to Israel. Now, the second importer of oil to Cuba is actually Mexico. And the US has been threatening Mexico with tariffs and such. And so Mexico has been trying to, instead of sending oil, they want to send humanitarian aid. And that's what happened with all of this. Now, going back to Mexico, however, right now, the Mexican president is somewhat a leaning democratic socialist. I don't think it's ever been confirmed. I don't think they've called themselves that. But by the way they've been speaking and stuff and implementing certain, trying to implement certain social programs in Mexico, it seems like for once there's a leader ever since AMLO came into power, which is the previous Mexican president. It seems like AMLO and Claudia were actually trying to, you know, help the Mexican economy and redistribute wealth to the Mexican people. So let's see. Let's learn more about Claudia, the Mexican president. Let me just get rid of all these other tabs here since we finished looking at this. Who is Claudia Sheinbaum? How do you pronounce her last name? Sheinbaum? Claudia Sheinbaum. I'm going to call her that. But I'll just call her Claudia. Mexico's first female president. This was from a year ago. She was recently elected. A lot of people hate her, chat. And it's not a lot of people. It's like mostly the US and a lot of dissatisfied, loud voices in Mexico. But let's get to know who she is a bit more, and then I'll reflect on the recent conflict in Mexico. Tama. Wow, what happened? What did I say? Tama. I was not expecting Israel to be the end user, but it makes sense. No, yeah, they literally immediately started sending that oil, the Venezuelan oil, to Israel. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Claudia Sheinbaum is Mexico's new president, becoming the first woman to hold the title after being sworn in during
wow, this is terrible audio.
Tuesday. The 62-year-old will hold the title for a single 6-year term.
She's 62? She looks so young.
Abuela. I am a mother, grandmother, scientist, and a woman of faith, and as of today, by the will of the people of Mexico, the constitutional president of the United Mexican States. Sheinbaum is a trained physicist and Mexico City's former mayor. Until she stepped down as mayor, she was known as a data-driven manager, winning approval for reducing the megacity's homicide rate by half, by boosting
By
standards and
half?
an expanded police force. She's a loyal ally of former leftist president Andrés Manuel López Obrador and has promised, quote, continuity with change, saying she'll build on her mentor's social programs. Sheinbaum has vowed to bolster women's rights and ensure Latin America's #2 economy remains a secure destination for international investment. She used her first speech to address investors over a sweeping judicial reform pushed by López Obrador. We will promote public investment and private investment. I say this very clearly. Rest assured that the investments of domestic and foreign shareholders will be safe in our country. Her pledges range from expanding public health care and education to building 1 million new homes, capping prices for key goods, and sending Congress a package of reforms to battle gender violence and discrimination. Experts say Mexico's economy will require a tax reform to increase revenues, though Sheinbaum has ruled out a sweeping tax overhaul for now. Her government's first budget is expected to be highly scrutinized for clues on whether she'll make good on commitments to reduce the fiscal deficit to 3.5% of GDP.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of claims, but so far, I mean, I was skeptical as well when it comes to, you know, any government official in the US or not in the US, my bad, in Mexico. You know, I've been very skeptical. I'm used to hearing how corrupt it is and everyone's bought over. By bought is like they're paid off by people who work in organized crime. But the thing is like my dad actually was a huge critic of the former president of Mexico, AMLO, which is the old guy that popped out there. There he is, actually. He didn't like him because the things that they were saying is too good to be true. Yeah, they're gonna make Mexico safer. They're going to not end, but reduce femicides, reduce crime, strengthen the what's it called? Law enforcement to battle crime. You know, it's like a lot of things that we hear that aren't true. But my dad eventually started saying that this AMLO guy was preparing for things slowly but surely for the benefit of Mexico's economy. And once Claudia went into power recently, I think literally last year, she literally does like daily briefings. I think she was live like not too long ago, like an hour ago. Maybe she's still live doing daily briefings of the things that they're working on and they have succeeded on. And it seems like the gradual change for Mexico is real. Like even I'm finally starting to see that. I wanna also, did I press that? I pressed this, right? Did we just watch this?
This is funded by viewers like you.
Okay. So this is Democracy Now! From a year ago, historic moment, a look at AMLO's legacy. This is the former president of Mexico, as Sheinbaum, or Claudia, becomes Mexico's first female president.
Please support our work at democracynow.org/give. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy.
She's as old as my parents? Yeah, she looks super young.
Making history today as it inaugurates its first woman president. Claudia Sheinbaum, climate scientist, Mexico City's former mayor, won a landslide victory in Mexico's June elections. Sheinbaum is a member of the ruling Morena Party, close ally of outgoing Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador, whose 6-year term ended last night at midnight. AMLO AMLO, as he's widely known, leaves behind a complicated legacy as Mexico's most popular president in decades. He's been championed as an ally of Mexico's poorest communities with policies that increase the minimum wage, strengthen labor and union rights. AMLO's critics say he's eroded democratic oversight in Mexico, where his recent enactment of a contested judicial reform was met with protests. AMLO says the reform would crack down on corruption in courts, but critics argue the plan could threaten judicial independence. AMLO's also been accused of failing to significantly address violence in Mexico, including the murder of journalists and rising femicides. Meanwhile, indigenous leaders denounced AMLO's completion of the ambitious Tren Maya project, a 1,000-mile railway that cuts through the Yucatan Peninsula, causing deforestation and environmental destruction. For more, we're joined here in New York by Edwin Ackerman, sociology professor at Syracuse University. His recent piece for Jacobin is headlined, AMLO's War on Neoliberal Corruption. So today is the first day of Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum's presidency. Last night, the last moment of AMLO's
When was this posted, actually?
Can you talk about the significance of both, Professor Ackerman?
October 1st.
This is a historic moment on many accounts, as you were mentioning, first woman president in the country, but also coming in with a very clear mandate, having won, as you mentioned, over the election overwhelmingly, her party having secured a 2/3 majority in Congress and basically close to doing so, one short of doing so in the Senate, which is an increasing, I think, anomaly in Western democracies, at least, that are at this point sort of accustomed to political stalemate. What we have here is a very strong president at the beginning of her term who campaigned on continuity with the previous administration.
Yeah. So she wants to continue what the previous administration claimed to do or wanted to do or has been doing.
And Edwin Ackerman, could you talk about the AMLO's legacy? Here's a man who tripled the minimum wage, doubled old age pensions, lifted millions out of poverty, but yet there is a lot of criticism of him, especially in the Western media.
No, yeah, a lot of people hate him, but he accomplished a lot. I mean, compared to before he was president, AMLO, the fact that he tripled minimum wage is insane to me. A lot of people, I mean, why do you think the whole reason why there's a lot of immigration to the U.S. is because people can't work in Mexico and earn a living? If he was able to triple the minimum wage in Mexico, that's just fucking a lot. And it also shows as to why immigration from Mexico to the U.S. has actually diminished drastically. But the critics that hate him are people who are from the West, people who live in Mexico that benefit from not having, poverty be eradicated in Mexico, and also people who are just scared of change.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think we could characterize the legacy in three respects. Right? I'll try and be brief here, but one is, as you were mentioning, some of these elements, the return, I would say, of class politics, which takes the form of a series of important legislative measures that includes raising the minimum wage, facilitating the formation of unions, but also more specific things like, for example, recognizing the labor rights of domestic workers for the first time in the country. And this has produced very clear results that are increasingly uncontrovertible. We have a 30% increase in the real wages of the average worker. The labor's share of income over the past 6 years has moved in favor of labor for the first time in decades. And the spending capacity of the bottom 10% of the population has increased by almost 100%.
100%? That's fucking insane, by the way. People at the bottom can now spend 100% more than what they used to. That's insane. Like, for me, I can't believe that, because I'm used to, like, you know, I'm used to the old Mexico. So for me, and I'm privileged as fuck, by the way, because I'm an American and I was born in America. But for me, it really hurt me seeing all of the family members I have who still live in Mexico, who have suffered and who have suffered from the corruptness of Mexico that forced a bunch of people to leave it and try to find a better place somewhere else in the US. But so that's what I was raised with, hearing about the American dream and why people were escaping their homeland because of the corruption and unfairness of people trying to live and not make a living. And you're telling me that this AMLO guy, the guy that gets criticized a lot, that a bunch of people hate, and when you only hear criticisms online and everywhere else in the media, facilitated by the Western powers as well, you're gonna like be sus of the guy and also hate him, which is what ended up happening to my father especially. And I inherited that as well, that sort of criticism. But eventually, when you see the stats, the statistics, and things that you cannot deny, you know, of course, there's no perfect government. Of course, this guy is imperfect. But when you compare it to him to before he was even in power, it was fucking worse. The numbers tell you that. 100%? Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
And depending on the calculations, about 9 million people lifted out of poverty.
9 million.
At the same time that there's an increasing, really clear voter realignment going on, in which increasingly the working classes, particularly the peasantry, the
peasants,
employees, and the informal sector are the basis of support of the party. And
the peasants and employers sector, are supporters of these guys.
The professional middle classes are sort of moving away from its support. The second important element, I think.
Oh, and those in the middle, upper class are moving their support away from these guys. I mean, that makes sense. Of course, the rich is not gonna like it when you don't make them exclusively rich anymore. That fucking makes sense. That clocks out.
I think of his legacy is a return of the state, which takes also several forms. One, perhaps the most well-known one, is the series of major infrastructure projects that ranges from the train that was being mentioned earlier here to refineries, airports, transportation corridors, etc., producing a lot of regional development, a lot of work, public works, and so forth. There's also an effort to re-centralize a series of previously outsourced government functions. And there's also, as you were mentioning, this slate of social programs that, in short, are different ways of different sort of universal cash transfer programs, that is not means tested cash transfer programs that are hugely popular, hugely successful during his time there.
Maybe not the railway thing though, I guess, but the thing is like, I don't know if that's, the thing is, I've heard that as of recently, Claudia has helped a lot of indigenous people be seen as fucking human and receive like help, monetary help to get out of poverty. Like the indigenous people in Mexico are finally getting seen as human. And people don't know about this, but there's indigenous people in Mexico. Okay, it's Mexicans are also racist, and they're racist to those who haven't you know, who aren't mestizo Mexicans, which is basically Mexicans who have like European blood in them, which is basically what Mexico is. Or not Mexico, but what Mexicans is. Essentially what a Mexican is someone who has indigenous and European blood mixed in. Not indigenous. I don't want to say Indian because I think that's like a racist term. How do you say that? I think we use that as a derogatory term in Spanish, but I don't use it derogatory at all, because my family members, some of my family members are actually obviously from Indian. I don't know how to say it though. I don't want to be offensive, but we we call them indios, but they're not. That's like not a respectful way to call them that. That's not respectful. I know that's not a respectful way to say what they are. But that's how I learned it as a kid. So, but those who aren't like basically fucking white, like look at my model. My skin is light skin. Obviously, I have European blood in me, and that's what makes me a Mexican, unfortunately. Mexico is just basically a mixture of European and indigenous, of people who used to be indigenous, Aztecs or Mayans or stuff like that. But the true indigenous people who were like OGs in Mexico, they get treated as shit, non-existent, get murdered, raped, killed, have their land stolen. Well, from what I'm hearing, Claudia has been supporting the indigenous population in Mexico so much. So, I mean, the train thing does sound fucked up, but if you think about Japan, having a functioning train system is essential for the success of a society, of a nation, not to rely too much on cars, and making it easily accessible for people who live out in the country to be able to get easily into the city and possibly get education, more work opportunities, yada yada. So that's why I'm kind of like iffy on that. Like, I can see how, contributing to some deforestation and fucking up some indigenous locations is fucked up. But at the same time, I can see the bigger picture as well. So I'm kind of iffy on that. Turns out it's not just Brits that exported the BS concept of whiteness. Spain, where are you? Spain and France did that shit too. Oh no, yeah, Spain was like, if you don't breed with us, your people will be brown. Your people will be brown. But if you continue to breed with us, your people will eventually be white and you will succeed like us. And people fell for it. And now we have like this predisposed mentality where, if you're dark skinned, when I first met my grandmother, chat, she's brown. I'm pretty sure she's brown. I know she has indigenous blood in her veins. You can just tell, but obviously we wouldn't be able to know that because my family in Mexico lives in poverty, so we wouldn't be able to know that. But when she first met me and I first met her, she was almost crying tears of joy, saying how happy she was that I was pale-skinned. And I was in immense shock. But like, once you learn how the Spaniards like fucked up the whole society's mentality on basically white supremacy, that sort of mentality just continues on and on, to the point where people, like even my grandmother, saw herself less as human simply because of the color of her skin. And that made me really sad. Of course, I denied that. I'm like, what are you saying? That's not right. It didn't make me sad, but that's what colonialism does to you. The Aztecs. Indigenous is the catch-all for people who were there before the imperialists came. Yes. Natives. I see. Yeah, or natives. There you go. Thank you. I should call them natives. Sometimes I hear First Peoples. Still native in my book. Okay. Can't see what they were thinking with the train thing, yes. The other weird thing is because whiteness is an exclusionary category, any proximity to being indigenous is categorized as non-white, and then othered by post-colonized societies. Yeah, it really depends. Like, if there's like no difference in skin tone, like there's other things that you must fulfill to be considered white. But in Mexico's case, there is like a huge variation of skin tones. You have it's not necessarily racist. It's very interesting because there is also like Black Mexicans, right? People from the Caribbean. Honestly, I've seen more racism towards the indigenous native people than towards like other like people who are of darker skin tones and stuff. It's just very interesting to me. But I feel like that's probably by design. Of course, there's Black racism, by the way. I'm not denying that. We'll never deny that. But in terms of indigenous people, they've been just fucked so bad by society. Diverse, yeah. But let's continue this.
And this has all been part of what I would call a progressive reframing of anti-corruption politics that thinks of neoliberalism itself as a form of corruption. And I'm happy to talk a bit more about that later on. But yeah, there are concerns that different camps have raised. Some of these concerns are raised, as you would imagine, by sort of knee-jerk critics of AMLO, members of the opposition parties and allies and so forth. But there are also, I think, types of critiques that have a certain, legitimacy in my personal opinion. Two that I would mention here are the way in which the military has been empowered over the past 6 years. Many of these infrastructure projects are actually managed, constructed, and designed by the military. And again, happy to talk about why that's the case, but the bottom line is that there has been a process of military empowerment in the past years.
And I guess we can kind of see that today with what happened recently with the cartel. I'm honestly confused as well on how to feel about that. Because again, I'm used to corruption from the military, from the cops. So it's not, I understand the worry of that. Like, I'm kind of iffy as well.
And there's also increasing environmental concerns, particularly in the project to revamp the state-owned oil company.
And now that's the thing. A lot of people, I guess I can't say like woke, but the people who are concerned about in the environmental safety. I know that Claudia is someone who advocates for climate change a lot, but AMLO and Claudia herself have been actually buying new oil refineries. And some people have been criticizing that. It's like, oh, what about climate change? I thought you were for climate change. Well, listen, that is somewhat, I understand that. But later on, I'll explain why the reasoning for the oil refineries.
And the obvious tension between fomenting the increase of fossil fuels under the objective of national energy sovereignty and the looming climate crisis.
And also, could you talk also in terms of the criticism, especially from other countries, of the judicial reform? What's your sense of that?
Right. So what was the judicial reform that just passed, first of all? It would put judges up for election, right? This includes up to the Supreme Court judges, right? Now, a couple of things to clarify here is judges, the Supreme Court judges in Mexico are already term limited, so it's not a lifetime appointment like it is in the U.S. So they would be limited to 8 to 15 years capped. Right? And there's also a recent history of a revamping of the Supreme Court in the late 90s, right? So it doesn't hold the same sort of, let's say, sort of quasi-divine mystical character that it does in the U.S. It's been sort of meddled with much more recently. But what is the motivation for this push to have judges be elected? The motivation from the point of view of the government is judicial independence, actually, that there's a sort of politicization of the judiciary. It's too beholden to formal and semi-formal networks of influence of private interest groups, and putting judges up for election is a way of overcoming that. And a couple of important things about the context to keep in mind for this reform is that, as I was mentioning, the judiciary, the Supreme Court in particular, has become, at least according to the government, increasingly politicized, right? Even explicitly so. For example, there's a series of major legislative reforms during the 6-year period that were overturned on, we could say, sort of petty proceduralist grounds, right? This included things like major reforms to the energy sector that would have given the state-owned electricity company a much stronger role, right? But there's also more concrete things, like, for example, at the beginning of the year, it was revealed that the head of the Supreme Court, Norma Piña, the head of the Supreme Court, had held secret meetings with the leader of the PRI and a very top high-ranking leader of the PAN, so two of the parties of the neoliberal right. These were secret meetings held in a private address.
And like, not only that, but if we think of it in more simplistic terms, every time because a lot of people understand more, especially Americans understand more, associate only cartels with Mexico, and I understand that, even I do that. But a lot of things that would happen is, like, these people would get captured, right? And then immediately get released. They go to jail, they get released. They get pardoned by these judges. So to fight that sort of corruption, it makes sense to me that people should fucking elect who the fuck is in power, you know? It makes sense. Oh, let me read this. It's not always skin tones either, like the history in the U.S. of Irish Catholics and Italians have been considered non-white. They used to be non-considered non-white, yes. Who is and isn't white is determined by who needs to be added or removed from the coalition to maintain oppression and superiority to the other. I know at some point Mexicans actually were considered white as well in the U.S. to garner more votes and stuff, and implement them into I guess in a way to control them more within American society. But a lot of people, I deny that. Like, when, for example, if I were to write something, and I know that race and ethnicity are two different things, but I kind of refuse to identify as white because I just don't practice, or I try not to, at least, practice and encourage colonialism. And I think that's like a white culture thing. It's just like colonizing and ruining other people's way of living. But when I'm supposed to do like a survey or something, they don't have Mexican on there. They've recently, lately, I've been seeing Hispanic and Latino as an option, but throughout my childhood up to like college, I've always seen just white or other, right? And the reason for that is because at some point Mexicans were considered white. So, I mean, they still technically are legally speaking, but I mean, obviously that's not very well implemented in the US. It just depends. It really does. If nuclear power was destigmatized, countries outside of the imperial core wouldn't need to rely on fossil fuel. That's also true, yeah. Term limited judges must be nice. Well, they don't have it yet, I think, but that's what they're aiming for, from what I understand.
Yes, the
Because
information.
this was from a year ago, right? Yeah, I don't know if they've implemented that, but that's what they're aiming for.
Was then leaked. Actually, the content of the meetings is still unknown, but the meetings themselves are quite troubling. Right? And in addition to that, there's a even longer-standing dispute between the Supreme Court and the executive and the legislature, for that matter, over salaries, over compensation of the Supreme Court justices. So when AMLO took office, he voluntarily lowered his salary. And the Constitution, as it stands, states that no public official can make more than the president. So that means that by default, the Supreme Court justices who have really high compensation packages would have to take a pay cut. They refuse to do so against what the Constitution says. So they have been actually in violation of the Constitution for the past 6 years.
I didn't know that. What the fuck?
Years. And the list goes on and on. We could, last point I would say here is, for example, by
we have 20 seconds.
Okay, the Supreme Court's report on this, their own report, half of the people that work in the judiciary have family members in the judiciary, which just speaks to the level of nepotism and, again,
nepotism and corruption
of influence that exists there. So that's the context for the push.
We want to thank you for being with us. Edwin Ackerman is sociology professor at Syracuse University, author of Origins of the Mass Parties, Dispossession and the Party Form in Mexico and Bolivia. We'll link to your piece in Jacobin, AMLO's War on Neoliberal Corruption. We'll do an interview in Spanish at democracynow.org and post it at there. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
That's kind of crazy. He was like, I didn't know that was like the law, that if you can't make more than the president. So that means the presidents from before were making a shit ton of money, by the way. And so were the judges and stuff. And the judges even refused to follow that law, even despite him lowering his fucking wealth. That's insane. That's crazy. And I can tell why people liked him. But, there's a lot of criticism going around even to this day, especially on Twitter. You're going to see that intense hatred for this guy and also Claudia. Going back to... So, okay. So the hate for AMLO and Claudia is very loud. I know someone who used to feel the same way in terms of hatred, but what changed? And so in this specific interview, the guy mentioned a lot of criticism for AMLO and also Claudia buying, but mostly AMLO. AMLO started this. He ended up buying a lot of oil refineries. Okay, AMLO is fighting to make Mexico's energy a public resource. Over the last 30 years, resource-rich Mexico has had its energy grid handed over to corporations and foreign multinationals, when it should have been in the hands of Mexican people. Andrés Manuel López Obrador is trying to reverse that trend by bringing back the nation's long dilapidated public energy sector. So, Mexico's President Andrés Manuel López Obrador speaks during a press conference after northern Mexico experienced blackouts as several power plants face natural gas supply failures from Texas, where a freeze left millions of users without lights on February 18th, 2021. So obviously I'm not going to read this whole thing, but Mexico relied for many years on outside sources are basically mostly the US for energy and oil. So when the source, the energy source that they got from Texas failed, well, so did the energy source in Mexico. And so AMLO started buying oil refineries. And actually, this is a key moment that my father told me, where he started seeing AMLO in a different light. He kind of realized, hey, this guy is looking for Mexican independence, where they can be self-sufficient, okay? A distraction against this, okay, is someone saying that they're going against climate change, that they're ruining the environment. But what about the US? The US is ruining the environment. What about Israel? Israel has destroyed an entire country and killed a bunch of animals within that country, and continues to ruin the environment with its constant bombs and threats to humanity. So in this case, it's kind of hypocritical to criticize Mexico for trying to own their energy resources, okay? This is the start of Mexico actually trying to become independent and share that, just better the Mexican economy. And that's where my father says that he started seeing AMLO in a different light. Let me see this. Oh, I just this is the same source, right? Okay, so making Mexico more self-sufficient and having that wealth benefit the people more. Whenever a government official or so-called social worker gained money to improve Mexico's society before AMLO's, well, I mean, this was the norm, okay? But let's just say before AMLO's presidency, those in charge will usually embezzle the money all for themselves, even if it was for the people. You know, these so-called social programs were shams most of the time. And my dad mentioned the specific case from over 13 years ago. And he when he was talking about this story, he was pissed off. He was so pissed off. He was basically saying how he couldn't believe that people are criticizing AMLO for you know, trying to bring wealth to people and remove corrupt wealth from others, when people who were supposedly trying to help those in Mexican societies were embezzling money. And he mentioned the specific case from over 13 years ago. I've never heard of it until my father told me about it. And it says right here, this article is more than 13 years old. Mexican Teachers Union boss arrested for alleged embezzlement of over 100 million, what the fuck is that, euros? Pounds? I think it's euros. So look at her. My dad was so mad, by the way, when he was telling me about this story. He was pissed the fuck off because, yeah, a bunch of people are suffering in Mexico. Okay, there's a reason why they try to escape and try to find a new life in the US, or at least they used to, because these people would keep all the money that was meant for the Mexican people to them fucking selves. So the head of Mexico's powerful teachers union was arrested at an airport near Mexico City on Tuesday for alleged embezzlement, with federal officials accusing her of using union funds to pay for plastic surgery, buy a house in San Diego, and pay her bill at fashion stores. The Attorney General, Jesus Murillo Caram, said Elba Esther Gordillo, that's the chick's name, who has led the 1.5 million member National Union of Education Workers for 23 years? She led that for 23 years, chat. Jesus fucking Christ. Was detained in Toluca on charges that she embezzled 2 billion pesos, over 106 million euros from union funds. damn. That's insane. She got arrested for that shit. And she got released. She got released. And is still getting paid, I betcha. That's fucked up, chat. What the fuck? Oops, my bad. That's fucked up. And that's why my dad and me, even if I haven't lived in Mexico, I know about that sort of corruption. You get tired of it. You're suffering. You're hungry. You see people get killed. And nothing is being done. This fucking bitch is getting plastic surgery with your money while you starve. And are forced to either live a life of crime or starve to death or be killed. Okay? So, to combat that, stuff like this is just an example, Claudia has called to change that sort of corruption through reforms such as capping so-called government pensions. So I didn't even know of this. My dad started telling me about government pensions, okay? So Claudia, I'm gonna call her Claudia, moves to cap Mexico's 7-figure government pension. 7 figures, okay? 7 fucking figures, chat. So Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum announced Wednesday that she will send a constitutional reform to Congress to eliminate what her government calls an entrenched system of excessive retirement payouts for former high-ranking officials at state-owned enterprises, some of whom collect more each month than the president herself earns. The announcement came during Sheinbaum's morning press conference at the National Palace in Mexico City, where Raquel Buenrostro, head of Secretariat for Anti-Corruption and Good Governance, laid out a detailed breakdown of the figures. What she presented was striking. I didn't even know this. My dad told me about this, and I guess this was revealed recently because this is from February 18th, 2026. Was this like a week ago, chat? That was around a week ago. At the new defunct power utility, Luz y Fuerza del Centro, Light and Power of Center, more than 14,000 former employees collectively received 28 billion pesos, about $1.6 billion per year in pension payments. And apparently this has been going on since forever. This has been something normal. Nearly 9,500 of them, roughly 67%, take home between 100,000 and 1 million pesos a month. One individual receives just over 1 million pesos monthly, about $58,000 monthly. The federal government also subsidizes part of their income taxes, adding another 2.4 billion pesos to the annual bill. Buenrostro noted that Luz y Fuerza pensioners receive an average of 140 times the national average pension. Well, my dad was telling me that if you were connected or related to these people in any way or form, okay, even if you worked in these government places for a month, you'd receive this immediately. You'd just receive these pensions without even working for it. You could work for 1 month and you'd receive this amount of money every month and every year. And Claudia is trying to fucking stop that, to cap that. What the fuck? Again, chat, a bunch of people have been suffering, and all you need to do is have your mommy be a corrupt official, and you work at a government office, and then you get fucking easy money like this while everyone else is starving, being raped, dying, or being killed by the cartel. What the fuck? How are they earning more than the president themselves? So when you hear about a bunch of criticism about Claudia, just remember what she's trying to stop. I'm not saying she's perfect, obviously, but just remember what she's fucking trying to stop. The reason why I'm sharing this is because those who criticize AMLO and Claudia are usually the ones who benefit from Mexico's corrupt system of only helping the corrupt government officials while poverty and violence struck or continue to strike Mexican citizens. A lot of cartels have control over cities in Mexico, and through manipulation and force, people either suffer from cartel crime or join it. They're kind of forced to do that. And now we are here to the present day. Finally, we're going to get to
Mexico is on high alert,
the next
but the president, Claudia Sheinbaum, says the country is at peace. Schools are closed in several states. Travel delays have left people stranded. And it's because a military operation that killed the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel. It's one of the country's most powerful criminal organizations. Nemesio Oseguera, also known as El Mencho, was wounded in fighting with soldiers in Jalisco State. He died on Sunday while he was being flown to Mexico City. Members of the cartel have responded with violence across the country, blocking roads and setting fire to vehicles. Mexico says Sunday's operation was carried out with its own military intelligence, and that was backed up by what it called complementary information from the U.S. El Mencho had a U.S. bounty on his head worth $15 million.
Damn.
Violence triggered by his death has sent fearful residents into hiding. The streets of the Jalisco state capital, Guadalajara, have been almost empty. Stores, pharmacies, and fuel stations have shut down. The unrest has spread to the neighboring states of Oaxaca as well as smaller resort towns. And travel warnings have been issued after the killing of El Mencho. Washington has told U.S. citizens in Mexico to remain indoors until further notice. The U.K. is advising against non-essential travel to parts of Mexico, including Jalisco State. Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum is urging citizens to remain calm.
We are proud of the armed forces' efforts. The most important thing at this time is peace and security throughout the nation. As of today, we have more peace and tranquility. Security Cabinet has been convened, and there is a lot of coordination. So rest assured, we are safeguarding peace and security and normalcy throughout the country.
We've got our correspondents in Mexico and the U.S. covering the latest developments. We're going to start with John Holman, who's live for us in Mexico City. John.
So if he's speaking pretty fast, but I'm pretty sure a bunch of people have heard of this already. But just to recap quickly, Mexico's military was able to kill Mexico's, what used to be Mexico's #1 leaders in one of the many leaders of the Mexican cartel, but this guy was literally the top boss of that. So they managed to kill him and his second of command.
So Mexico's defense minister, who was speaking after the president, had been giving more details about the raid.
Yes, he was, and it was quite some information that he gave. First of all, he said how they'd actually been able to find Nemesio Oseguera, El Mencho. He said that they'd actually located through their military intelligence a man that transported one of his sentimental partners, his romantic partners of El Mencho, to this group of cabins that are in this picturesque holiday town in Jalisco called Tlalpan. And that there, once they found out that he was taking her, the man then said that he dropped her off and that El Mencho was there and he was meeting with her. She then went, he stayed on, El Mencho, and that's when they started to plan the operation. He said, first of all, they sent an armed force by the roads, and that made a circle around the area of cabins in which El Mencho was with his security detail. We know that he always travels pretty heavy with an escort that can protect him just in case he needs it from Mexican security forces. Once they got that done, they also activated an aerial force that was going to drop in mostly via helicopter and have a sort of element of surprise. He said that they kept them out of the state of Jalisco so that they could get in there and then sort of launch almost an ambush. He said that what happened is they started going in to try and capture El Mencho. that people, the El Mencho's people then started to fire on them quite strongly. It got really violent. And after that, El Mencho fled into the woods with a couple of his bodyguards. Then they tracked them down. They managed to capture them. They put them, he said, on the helicopter to Mexico City. And then El Mencho died en route. So it was quite an operation. There were quite a few questions for him on where the intelligence came from. And he said, no, it was our intelligence, but we were backed up by US intelligence. He made quite a big deal out of that. That's
Yeah, that was a big deal as well. During the entirety of this, the US tried to take the all the credit. Like, they trying to make it seem like this was a US operation, when in reality all they contributed was some intel. I'm going to kind of go more quickly here because it's almost 2 a.m. and I have to go to bed soon. This is actually the most recent update on all of this.
An eerie quiet in Mexico, a day after the death of the country's most powerful drug lord. Schools out, many businesses are closed. And the trucks that the Jalisco New Generation cartel dragged across roads to stop Mexican security forces and create chaos have been moved out the way, says the president. You can rest assured, she said, that peace, security and normality in the country are being safeguarded. In a morning press conference, new details too about the army raid that killed Nemesio Oseguera, otherwise known as El Mencho. One of his romantic partners unknowingly gave him away. Mexican intelligence tracked her to an assignation with him in Tapalpa, a small tourist town in West Mexico.
She met with El Mencho, this romantic partner, and on February 21st she left the property and we got the information that he was still there.
The armed forces moved in, encircling the cabins he was staying at, while helicopters filled with special forces laid down withering fire. El Mencho fled to the woods. There he was seriously wounded. He died on the way to hospital. So who was this man who defied the Mexican government for more than a decade? As a teen, he was a drug runner in the US. Here's his mugshot, aged 18. Then a cop in Mexico, a surprisingly common route for many budding gangsters.
Not surprising.
Finally founding his own cartel, gaining notoriety when his troops shot down an army helicopter. Songs sung about him. Stories and videos of his men giving medicine and toys to the poor. He wanted to be a Robin Hood. But most importantly, drugs trafficked by the ton. Cocaine and fentanyl heading to the US. El Mencho's cartel has a presence in all of its 50 states. That's why US authorities put a $15 million bounty on his head and eventually supplied intelligence that helped kill him.
Even in the wake of his death, El Mencho left violence. 25 National Guardsmen were killed by his men just in one state, Michoacan, in the chaos on Sunday. And there were 85 narco blockades, as they're called, in different parts of the country. But his body's now been formally identified here in Mexico City. He is gone.
He leaves behind a paramilitary organisation with tank-like armoured vehicles, rocket launchers and a huge arsenal of guns and manpower. Now nobody knows what they'll do next or who will take charge. The army's already sending 2,500 reinforcements to Jalisco State, the cartel's stronghold, to keep the peace. With a World Cup coming up that Mexico will joint host, a succession battle is a worry, especially with matches to be played in Guadalajara, Jalisco's capital. John Holman, Al Jazeera, Mexico City.
Don't miss out. Get the full...
And that's the thing. That's the thing. I can't say what's gonna happen, like what's for sure going to happen. I was gonna, before I share my opinion on anything, you know, when you mess with a cartel, they're going to attack civilians. That's something that they've always done, and or, you know, destroy properties. And that's what they did. of course. So many Mexicans on Twitter, even people that I have commissioned from, were scared and of going outside and were afraid of what was going to happen. Was this going to have drastic consequences towards innocent people? And I understand that. But so that's part of the reason why a lot of people ended up having even more criticism towards Claudia and the Mexican military, because it's like, oh, you're bringing you're endangering our people by fucking with the cartel. Now they're going to attack us and we're going to be the victims of this. That's true. I can't deny that. I really can't. But the thing is that these people have been in power for way too long. And I really hope that Claudia actually has measures to combat any new leader or anyone else who may retaliate against the Mexican government over this. But one thing that people fail to realize is that the cartel has been funded and has received all their literally weapons of war that they use against people in Mexico, literally innocent people, to destroy cities and take control over them. Literally, Israel arms the drug cartels, and this is something that I was not surprised, but at the same time surprised. I couldn't really believe it. It's something that they do with the Palestinian population as well. They try to control people within Palestine who are criminals and who do crimes such as drug work. But there isn't evidence that happens in Palestine, is what they're saying. However, there is ample evidence that Israel has aided, trained, and armed criminal drug cartels around the world. In large part, this was a component of Israel's role as a proxy of U.S. imperialism in Latin America. During the 1980s, Israel continues in this proxy role today with its arming of Azov Battalion in Ukraine, one of the country's most well-equipped neo-Nazis militias. So, the U.S. continues to fund for these cartels that literally bring fear amongst the public. And Israel as well, apparently, even the Rolling Stones has shared this, how the United States arms the Mexican cartels. In an expert from Exit Wounds, author Leva Jusianai traces the deadly pipeline of assault weapons into the hands of organized crime. Okay. Mexican army soldiers stand guard behind AK-47s and M16 rifles, part of the arsenal seized to alleged members of the drug cartels in the community of Paso de Ovejas in Veracruz, Mexico, in March 6th of 2012. I can't read it, apparently. Oh, I can. So what are American guns doing in Mexico? This question first came to me nearly a decade ago while working as an EMT, treating wounded migrants who were risking their lives trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. And of course, I can't read the rest of this, but there's already evidence that both the U.S. and Israel fund for these cartels. So social media was quick to spread misinformation, to persuade people that Mexico needed U.S. intervention, okay? That Mexico was falling, that they needed intervention now, that the U.S. needed to nuke Mexico to get rid of these cartels. They need to invade Mexico to take control of Mexico. Because clearly what was happening yesterday, these past 2 days, was a sign that the cartels were controlling everything, that the Mexican government was failing, and that they needed the U.S. to colonize Mexico. Okay, an example of this, of misinformation being spread on social media, was by American officials, right-wingers, fucking people who are LARPing as Mexicans who like One Piece, okay? They're LARPing as One Piece fans, which is the biggest crime of them all. One Piece fans who are saying that the current Mexican government is corrupt, when in reality it was way worse before AMLO. But some of the false reporting that was shown here, let's read this. On social media and across various news outlets, false reports circulated about the arrest of Ruben and alias El Mencho. False that attacks against civilians took place at the Guadalajara airport. False that attacks were carried out against the general population in Jalisco. False that members of organized crimes were holding U.S. tourists hostage. Fake photograph of a plane fire in Guadalajara. False that gunmen took over the facilities of the Guadalajara airport. And false that U.S. military personnel participated in the arrest of Ruben in Mexico. That was such a fucking lie. Even Laura Loomer, the greatest liar of all in right-wing American politics, Generación Z Mexico is a One Piece LARPer who basically is a right-winger. Trying to demonize basically the government right now. So when that was debunked, when all of this that is on screen has been debunked, they also tried to take credit away from the Mexican military of conducting this operation. So Mexican President Sheinbaum, God, this is so difficult for me to pronounce. All operations are conducted by federal forces. There is no involvement from U.S. forces in the operations. As we've mentioned several times here, there is a significant exchange of information. Our understanding with the U.S. primarily is based on sharing of intelligence and information. In this instance, information was shared by the U.S. government, and they even issued a statement about it.
El entendimiento con Estados Unidos se basa fundamentalmente en intercambio de inteligencia de información. En este caso, hubo información que prestó el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, incluso ellos sacaron un comunicado.
They even issued a statement.
Pero toda la operación desde su planeación.
However, the entire operation from its planning onward is the responsibility of our federal forces, specifically the Secretariat of National Defense. So she had to clarify that. And right-wingers are mad at Mexico, of course. American right-wing journalists are angry at Mexico because yesterday it knocked down Trump's narrative and theirs that Mexico is incapable and indisposed to go after high-profile cartel bosses. As you may know, Trump has been saying this entire time that, Mexico can't control the cartel problem, the narco problem, everything. And that's why the American government needs to invade Mexico. But clearly that was disproven yesterday. So the pretext of U.S. military intervention no longer holds. They can no longer do that because Mexico was able to do that by themselves, especially by, taking down the #1 cartel leader in Mexico. That's a big, huge thing. That is why they have downplayed the successful military operation of the Mexican armed forces that eliminated El Mencho, leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, and focused on the aftermath chaos they caused with vehicle burns and roadblocks. By disseminating on social media fake news and videos generated with AI to generate an image of overwhelming chaos and ungovernability, far from reality. What we witnessed yesterday is a typical reaction of cartel members when their leaders fall. El Mencho wasn't just any kingpin. He was the head of one of the most violent criminal organizations with tentacles reaching across the globe. The Mexican government dealt a heavy blow to this criminal organization, leaving it weakened. This would perhaps reconfigure the drug trafficking as a whole, but for the international media, that is not the main story. Yeah, and that's now I can finally like give my opinion, right? Let me exit all of this. But now I can give my opinion. Let me turn on the music. But basically, the question is, will Mexico be okay? We started the stream saying how the US hates it when a nation tries to self-govern and tries to do that in a way that benefits their people. And that led us down to reflecting on what happened in Mexico these past 2 days after killing Mexico's #1 leader in the cartel and drug trafficking. I believe that the fear of the normal people, not right-wingers or rich people or people who just simply hate AMLO and Claudia just to hate, but actual people, you know, civilians who always have to suffer from the consequence of either side fighting or involving themselves in fights against or with corruption. So the question is, will Mexico be okay? And all I can say is that I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Many people have hope for Mexico, especially those who voted for both AMLO and Claudia, okay? But I won't deny the danger and violence that may or may not come from this. Is this the start of true change? Of removing corrupt crime, controlling the government, and bringing stability and power to the people? One thing for sure is that Mexico was far worse, and a lot less was done for the people before AMLO and Claudia came into power. So my family specifically is finally seeing hope in Mexico. And not every little thing will be fixed, obviously. There's going to be issues. There's going to be issues that have not been addressed, and there's going to be fuck-ups. It will take a long time for things to change. But I think it's time for us to see hope in Mexico too, and realize that the nation that doesn't want you to is the US. And that is finally the end of today's TamaTalks. I hope you learned something new or started, pondering on something that you didn't ponder on before. But it's almost, what time is it, y'all? I don't know what time it is. I can't see. Shit, it's already 2 a.m. and I have work in like 4 hours, so I'm screwed. But before I go, I like to ask a question to those who are still here. I've been debating if I should do TamaTalks twice a week instead of once a week. Either Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is today and tomorrow, or an alternative Tuesday and Thursdays, which is today and 2 days from now around this time. I did some polls, but a lot of people don't interact with my socials. By the way, if you haven't even followed my socials, here they are for your convenience. But I have been getting more attention for my political commentary, specifically on Twitter, and now it seems on YouTube. I don't know if it's gonna grow or not, but that's why I'm considering if I should do more political commentary instead of doing it once a week. Maybe I should do it twice a week. So please let me know. Like, give me an opinion if you guys think that having it twice a week on Tuesday and Wednesdays, or maybe Tuesday and Thursdays would work or not. To those who are watching on YouTube, please comment and let me know. Or if you can comment right now, that would seriously help me a lot. I'm still considering a lot of things and planning a lot on things. Tuesday, Wednesday sounds good. Thursday, good. Interesting. Or Thursday. Whichever works better. But I think I might have to aim for twice a week when it comes to TamaTalks. It's just, it takes a lot of preparation though, but to be honest, I do take like a long ass time talking, and I end up like going an hour over my streaming time that I plan, and then I go to sleep hella late, and then yeah. Okay, well, thank you for letting me know. I'll consider more things. Maybe we'll see changes in March, and if not March, then by April. But yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. I'll see you guys tomorrow for some Disco Elysium. Yeah, you probably need to start early on TamaTalks. I used to start an hour early, but no one would watch me. I noticed that people start watching around 12 a.m. my time, which is why I decided maybe I should start an hour later. This is actually a new time for me that I started last week, and I feel more people interact with my content around 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. or basically to 2 a.m. So yeah, right now I don't think I can start earlier because I feel like the people who interact the most are available at terrible hours my time. But that's true. If I do it twice a week, I might lose more sleep. I don't know. I'll think about it. But I'll see you guys tomorrow for more political stuff, but in this case, political gaming. Will I become a crazy communist or a crazy Nazi? I don't know, but we can find out when I play tomorrow. Disco Elysium, a very good story-based game that is silly and is very highly reflective of politics. So join me tomorrow at 11 p.m. JST, where I'll play Disco Elysium. See you, everyone. Have a good night. Bye. Bye.
してるから今